While heading to the hospital, my wife got an urgent call from my stepdaughter's biological father, on the way to the hospital, my wife, Lisa, received an emergency call from my stepdaughter's biological father, which led to a heated moment where she asked me to exit the car while I was in pain. She insisted I figure things out on my own and left. Later that night, my stepdaughter, Chloe, made a significant announcement, and suddenly, I found myself painted as the villain for supposedly manipulating her feelings. 3 days ago, I, a 41-year-old man, had a minor accident that resulted in a wrist injury. It wasn't anything severe, just a sprain, but at the moment it happened, the pain was intense. Only my wife, Lisa, 45, and I were at home when I asked her to take me to the nearby emergency room to get it checked out. I feared I might have fractured my wrist. Initially, she was skeptical and reluctant, insisting that I would be fine if I just applied some ice. However, I didn't want to take any chances, so I managed to persuade her to drive me. Halfway to the hospital, she received a call from her ex-husband, and without hesitation, she told me to get out of the car because she had an emergency to attend to. We were just a few minutes away from the ER, and I pleaded with her to at least drop me off, but she refused, insisting I handle it myself. Despite the pain, I ended up walking to the ER, which took about 15 minutes, while by car it would have only taken a couple. By the time I arrived, I was hot and sweaty, and the pain felt even worse. While waiting, I called my stepdaughter, Chloe, and explained what had happened. Within 20 minutes, she arrived and drove me home. Chloe, 22, is Lisa's daughter from her previous marriage to Mark, 44. Chloe and I share a close bond. She calls me Dad, as I've been a father figure to her since she was 7. Lisa and Mark's relationship had ended when Chloe was just 4, and they never really rebuilt a strong connection. Understandably, Chloe was upset that her mother had abandoned me during my time of need, especially when I was in pain. Even after we learned it was just a sprain, she expressed that there was no justification for Lisa's behavior, and I didn't defend Lisa because I felt the same way. When we got home, my wrist was in a splint, which I would need to wear for 3 to 4 weeks. I didn't think it was as trivial as Lisa had claimed. After we settled in, Chloe stayed with me, helping me with various tasks, but I could sense something was bothering her. Later that evening, when Lisa finally returned home, she gathered us all in the living room and made an announcement that stirred up a lot of tension. I was proud of Chloe for standing up for me. Lisa revealed that she had been contacted by her great-uncle's lawyer, who informed her that he had left her a significant inheritance. For context, this great-uncle was on Lisa's side of the family, and Chloe had been quite close to him due to their shared interests. He had passed away recently, and it wasn't surprising that he left a substantial amount to Chloe, given that he was well off and had lost his own family in an accident long ago. We were all happy for her, and I was about to congratulate her when she continued speaking, leading to the controversial part of her announcement. Chloe expressed that she had been considering splitting her inheritance with her parents, me and Lisa, but after witnessing how Lisa had treated me that day and her behavior over the past few weeks, she decided it would be better to share the inheritance with me instead. Chloe felt that Lisa wasn't treating any of us right, and she wasn't entirely wrong. Mark had recently moved back to town a couple of months ago, and initially, he and Lisa had started reconnecting as friends, believing it would benefit Chloe. However, Chloe wasn't interested in spending much time with her biological father, given their weak relationship. Lisa and Mark's breakup had stemmed from his job requiring him to move away, which led to a deterioration in his relationship with Chloe. He would only visit on alternate weekends, and as his work became more demanding, he could hardly find time to see her. At first, Chloe resented him for his absence, but after Lisa and I got together, she began to see me as a father figure, which worked out well for all of us. I loved Chloe as if she were my own daughter, and she reciprocated that affection. Unfortunately, Mark wasn't ready to be a father back then, opting for a relationship with Chloe that was convenient for him. Now that he had returned, he attempted to rebuild his relationship with her, but Chloe quickly shut him down. As an adult, she had established her own boundaries, and it was hard to blame her. Mark had prioritized his career over his. Chloe announced that she would be splitting the inheritance with me, and that her mother would have to stay out of it. The atmosphere was tense, and while we all felt a bit awkward, Lisa immediately sprang to her feet, accusing me of manipulating her daughter against her and Mark. She didn't even acknowledge Chloe, who had made the announcement and decision entirely on her own. Instead, Lisa launched a verbal attack on me, insisting that I needed to stop overreacting and being insecure about every little thing. Lisa screamed at me, explaining that she had to leave because of a business emergency related to a potential investor that Mark had called her about. She insisted that I was making a fuss over nothing, claiming my injury wasn't as serious as I was portraying it. Lisa accused me of shedding crocodile tears to make Chloe feel sorry for me and manipulate her into taking my side, painting me as the villain in this scenario. I was initially dumbfounded, but when she said that I had replaced Chloe's father in her life, but could never truly take his place, I finally snapped. I fought back, telling her that she was the one acting irresponsibly and irrationally. I pointed out that if she thought I was overreacting because she spent half the week at her ex's place, then perhaps she needed to re-evaluate her priorities. I expressed my frustration, stating that anyone in my position would have left her by now. If anything, I was underreacting because I had trusted her, but now I was beginning to doubt whether she deserved that trust. It was clear to me that her priorities had shifted, and it felt like her family and I no longer mattered to her. It was all about Mark now. Lisa became even more agitated when I suggested that she might be cheating on me. The argument escalated to the point where we were hurling insults at each other, and Chloe had to step in to separate us, urging us to calm down. After our fight, Lisa stormed out and didn't return until late that night. When she did come back, she packed a few things from our bedroom without saying a word to me, only informing Chloe that she would be staying with a friend for a few days. Now, 3 days have passed, and I feel terrible about the fight. Chloe hasn't been able to return to her apartment and has been working from home to be here for me. I know that if she leaves, I'll be completely alone until our twin daughters come back in the evening after their extracurricular activities. She hasn't complained about being here and seems content to support me, but I can't shake the feeling that she's sacrificing her privacy for my sake. It should be my responsibility to manage my situation, not hers, and I feel guilty for putting her in this position. I keep replaying the events in my mind, wishing I had kept my cool during the argument. Maybe we could have resolved things without everything spiraling out of control. Chloe has reassured me multiple times that I shouldn't blame myself for the situation, emphasizing that it was her mother who created this mess. She pointed out that I had been more patient and level-headed than most people would have been in my shoes. Still, I can't help but feel responsible for the fight with Lisa, especially since she has been rekindling her relationship with Mark. I want to clarify a couple of things. First, I'm not shaming Mark for prioritizing his career. I simply believe that he didn't choose to be there for his daughter when it mattered most. It's not my fault that Chloe has a better relationship with me than with him. I invested time and effort into being there for her during her formative years, while he was absent. Now, as an adult, he can't force a relationship on her if she doesn't want it, even with my support. I'm also not naive. I know there might be something more going on between Lisa and Mark. I haven't completely ruled out the possibility of an affair, but it hurts too much to dwell on it. I've been trying to avoid thinking about it because it's painful, and I don't have any concrete evidence, just my suspicions and insecurities. I've brought it up with Lisa a few times, and she has always reassured me that there's nothing romantic between them, that they are just friends. They've stayed in touch over the years because of Chloe, and until recently, I didn't have an issue with it. But now, it feels uncomfortable, and admitting it out loud is embarrassing. I never wanted to feel this way, but the situation has changed, and I find myself grappling with feelings of insecurity and doubt. I wish I could shake off these thoughts, but they linger, and I'm left wondering what the future holds for us. Draining for me, and I feel like I've reached my limit. I know it might sound dramatic, but I can't keep pretending that everything is fine when it's clearly not. I've tried to be understanding and patient, but the situation has become unbearable. I've been feeling like a high school kid, grappling with insecurities and doubts about my relationship. I no longer appreciate the nature of Lisa and Mark's relationship. It feels like it's crossed a line into something that shouldn't be considered platonic anymore. I've been wrestling with the idea that there might be something more going on between them, and while I've tried to push those thoughts aside, I can't ignore them any longer. I spoke to Chloe about everything I was feeling. First and foremost, I apologized for putting her in such a difficult position. It's been a week since Lisa walked out, and Chloe has been a tremendous help. With my wrist sprained, I can hardly do anything, and she's been taking care of chores and working from home. I know it must be stressful for her, especially since I've had to adjust to working from home too. At least I don't have to worry about household tasks, and that's all thanks to her. I expressed my guilt to Chloe, acknowledging that it should be Lisa helping me, not her. Chloe reassured me that it was no big deal. She reminded me that even when she was younger, I had gone above and beyond for her, and now it was her turn to help me. Her words touched me deeply, and I found myself getting emotional. I ended up crying and venting to her about my suspicions regarding Lisa's fidelity. I thought Chloe would dismiss my concerns, telling me I was overthinking things, but instead, she fell silent. Her silence spoke volumes, and I realized she was grappling with the same doubts. After a while, she finally spoke up, saying she wasn't sure if Lisa was cheating, but she was certain that they weren't just discussing Chloe or trying to repair their relationship. For months, Chloe hadn't received any messages or calls from Mark, which made me question everything Lisa had told me about their supposed efforts to reconnect. Hearing this shattered me. If Mark wasn't even trying to reach out to his own daughter, then everything Lisa had said about brainstorming ways to mend their relationship felt like a lie. I didn't know how to respond, so I told Chloe that I felt the only way to deal with the situation was to file for divorce. I couldn't handle Lisa's closeness with Mark anymore, and it was clear she didn't care about my feelings in the matter. I was uncertain about their plans to start a business together. It felt like a flimsy excuse to spend time together. Things had escalated to a point where I was unsure of anything, and at my age, I didn't want to deal with this kind of turmoil. I had already put up with so much without complaint because I loved Lisa, but even love has its limits. Chloe was the only person I felt comfortable confiding in. My mother had passed away a couple of years ago, and my father had been absent from my life since childhood. I was grateful that Chloe understood my feelings. Although she wasn't my biological daughter, she meant the world to me. My twin daughters were still too young to grasp the situation, but Chloe was mature enough to offer sound advice. She encouraged me to prioritize my own feelings, reminding me that nobody else was doing so. Chloe pointed out that there was no telling what was happening between Lisa and Mark, and even if I confronted her, I might not get the truth. The situation had spiraled out of control, and it was time for me to extract myself before I got hurt even more. Her advice resonated with me, and I realized I needed to take action. I began looking for divorce attorneys, and I felt a sense of relief knowing I was finally taking steps to reclaim my life. If Lisa returned home, I planned to talk to her about my decision. But in my heart, I knew my mind was made up. I anticipated that the process would be difficult, but after everything that had transpired since Mark's return, I felt ready to face it. As for the second update, it's been a rough couple of weeks. Lisa hasn't come back since she walked out, and I've spoken to a lawyer with Chloe's help. A few days ago, I filed for divorce. Lisa and I haven't blocked each other, we've just stopped communicating. I left her a message explaining that given the current situation, I didn't think it was necessary for us to stay together. It was clear that her priorities had shifted since Mark's return, and I couldn't continue to endure the emotional turmoil. I know this is a significant step, but I feel like it's the right one for me. I deserve to be in a relationship where my feelings. It's been a challenging journey, but I've finally taken a stand for myself by filing for divorce. I poured my heart into the message I sent Lisa, but she didn't respond, and I realized there was nothing more to say. Today, I believe she was served with the divorce papers. She reached out to Chloe, saying she would sign the documents in a couple of days after having her lawyer review the terms. It was disheartening that, despite my direct communication, she chose to speak through Chloe instead of addressing me personally. I've learned not to expect much from Lisa anymore, and her nonchalant attitude towards the divorce only reinforces my suspicions that something was going on with Mark. In the past, even during our worst fights, we never entertained the idea of divorce. Lisa would have never considered it, and I certainly didn't think we would reach this point. But here we are, and there's little we can do now. On a brighter note, my daughters are fully supportive of me. The twins, despite their young age, seem to grasp what I'm going through and have been incredibly compassionate. Chloe has been mature throughout this ordeal, even helping me break the news to the twins when I filed for divorce. I was worried they would be upset, but they surprised me with their support. As long as my 3 daughters stand by me, I feel equipped to handle anything that comes my way. The twins are turning 16 soon, so I don't anticipate any custody battles. We can simply consult a lawyer to handle the paperwork and arrange something that works for all of us. Right now, the twins harbor negative feelings towards their mother and don't want to spend time with her. I'm sure that may change with time, but for now, they are adamant about staying with me. 5 days have passed since my last update, and today, Lisa returned home with the signed divorce papers. She's not contesting anything, and once the waiting period is over, the divorce will be finalized. We had already worked out the details with our lawyers, so I was taken aback when she showed up unannounced. She explained that she was there to collect her belongings because she was running low on clothes and couldn't keep borrowing from friends. It was the weekend, so Chloe and the twins were home, and they deliberately kept their distance from Lisa, barely acknowledging her presence. It was clear they were pointedly ignoring her, and she didn't address any of us until she finished packing. Just before leaving, she finally spoke to the twins, trying to explain that they needed to understand that both she and I were going through a lot. She claimed they wouldn't comprehend the complexities of adult life at their age, but she assured them that she was still their mother and that they would eventually understand her perspective. The kids remained silent, as did I. We didn't want to escalate the situation further. Lisa was completely off base in her assumptions about our shared struggles. We chose silence over drama, and she left without any further confrontation. As soon as her car pulled out of the driveway, Chloe began to vent about how absurd it was that Lisa still refused to acknowledge her role in the chaos. Chloe pointed out that Lisa was the only one who had created these issues in our lives. It struck a chord with me because it was true. Perhaps Lisa was experiencing a midlife crisis, which explained her closeness with Mark, but I had no problems until that relationship began. Chloe was furious, and the twins were equally upset that Lisa had the audacity to suggest they would eventually understand her side. From their perspective, there was no justification for her actions. They felt she was wrong, and all she needed to do was apologize for the mess she had created. Instead, she squandered that opportunity. I'm relieved that my daughters handled the situation with dignity and didn't engage in unnecessary arguments with Lisa. It's clear she's beyond reasoning at this point, and her delusions about being justified in her actions are troubling. She seems to genuinely believe she has a valid point, despite the damage she's caused to our family. It's been 6 months since my last update, and the divorce was finalized a few months ago. I'm currently in therapy, which I didn't think would help, but Chloe encouraged me to give it a try. Surprisingly, it's been beneficial. From what I've gathered, Mark and Lisa started their own business shortly after our divorce was finalized.